We are the best team in Malaysia because we have strong and veteran players.
It's a hurricane, it's over. Before you know it, why you shaking?
Bigetron adalah tim pertama yang masuk GPL dan kita akan membuat kejutan di sana.
Royalty, now we're breaking down the enemy, move over.
ก็ตัวไป MSI 2018 นี้ก็ค่อนข้างมีความหมายกับทีมครับเพราะว่าจะโชว์ให้รู้ว่าทีมไทยก็ไปเวทีระดับโลกได้ครับ
It's all for this. We're gonna stand on top with
I think this GPL is a chance for all the 5 countries to really show that what they can do and how much they can perform, especially going into MSI, as the winner will get a slot at the MSI playgroups. So it's a chance to do our country proud.
To the other 4 teams in this GPL, good luck to everyone and may the best team win. And hopefully the winner will represent the region very well in MSI.
Hello Southeast Asia, and we welcome you back to the Garena Premier League 2018 Spring. My name is Vulcan, with me is Artek. Your shoutcasters entering the 3rd game.
Yeah, and man, oh man, these first 2 games that we had were very interesting. Just the last one between Indonesia and Team Philippines. Mineski just living up to their win conditions to the T, really got things going as soon as they pulled the trigger, and that's the first victory for so far. What we have is a 1 victory for Thailand, 1 victory for Philippines, whilst Malaysia and Indonesia, already having played their first games, are yet to see if they could break one up. But of course, for this game right here, we are going to be having Sovereign of Singapore versus, once again, taking the stage. It's going to be Ascension Gaming from Thailand, looking at potentially taking their 2nd win. But of course, given that Sovereign is representing Singapore this time around, they're not going to be giving that victory quite easily, that's for sure.
And this is Ascension's 2nd game here for our first day of the group stages. So when it comes to the GPL, I just love it how all the veteran teams, the veteran players, highly skilled in their respective region, gather here to find out who will represent Southeast Asia in upcoming mid-season invitational, the MSI.
Yeah, and I mean, this is pretty juicy right here. Like me and Chiso have been talking about earlier, the great thing here is that because Vietnam, they're pretty much out of the picture for the GPL. They were actually rewarded their own slot going into MSI and World. So I guess this is the time for to shine for one of these 5 countries right here. There's a lot of expectation with Philippines and Thailand, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm all for a potential underdog in this GPL.
So when it comes to Vietnam, it's not that they're out of the picture. They have their own picture being painted here, and they have their own region being rewarded for their outstanding performance and contribution to the Southeast Asia region. So they've been rewarded with that. But as for our C region, the 5 regions that remain under Garena, who will represent us in the MSI? That's the real question here, because from just day one, we can already determine who is the stronger team, the strong teams, and who is the underdog clearly entering this GPL.
Yeah, and so far, I guess, looking at the rosters for Ascension Gaming, once again, it's going to be Rocky in the top lane, Intresso in the jungle, G4 in the mid lane, and of course, bot lane duo Lloyd and Rich for AD carry and support, respectively, representing Thailand right there. They're on home court right now, so I guess it's all the more encouraging knowing that you have your Thai fans, you know, they have their back, basically.
As for Thailand's performance in our first game, I gotta say, they're so quick to adjust to, let's say, small early leads that the enemy has. Just like how Caspiel managed to steal his red buff, and what did Intresso do? Immediately answered the problem, remedied it, and solved the issue.
And of course, we're also looking at the Ranking Sovereign, Shinsekai, Ice Destiny, Arcalic, Mexilu, and Crawford, top jungle mid, AD carry, and support, respectively. Interesting to note, though, for Sovereign, for those that tuned in to the previous Garena All-Stars, these 2 players, both Arcalic and Craw, they were very much crucial to allowing Singapore to reach all the way the finals against Vietnam. So I think that in itself is pretty much proven as to the Singaporean squad having those 2 players as a dominant force. I'm wondering if that translates to even better things now that they're with their actual teammates going into the GPL.
And as for Thailand, again, it's no stranger than Ascension Gaming representing the country yet again from their TPL, the Thailand Pro League 2018 Spring. I gotta say, ending your finals with 3-0 ending your group stage with just one game drop. This just goes to show how strong Ascension is entering our GPL.
Yes, I'm wondering how this draft is going to go for both sides here, because I think Ascension Gaming, they pretty much shown that even with things, I mean, it's been a while since the last GPL, but they pretty much proven that there's just no slowing down for them. You also have to take note, this is the first time that we're seeing this particular roster in a while with the full Thai squad. If you recall, previously they've had imports such as No Way. I forgot who the more... Jisoo, there we go. It was Jisoo who was on their previous roster, but now they're boosting an all-Thai squad. So far, looking very good as of what we've seen in Game 1.
If I can recall, it was Snow Way, yes, also. And somehow, see, if it was Viper, if I'm not sure, if I'm not mistaken. But when it comes to Ascension, they'll be playing on the blue side for our Game 3. And as for Sovereign, they'll be playing on the red side. Normally, when you see Ascension, it's common knowledge to ban out sometimes the Rise or sometimes the Jace or the Azir of G4. But know that since the Skarner has been removed and banned out, Sovereign will answer that by removing the Olaf.
You know, what's interesting here about the Singaporean squad is whenever I look at these different regions like Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, you almost always... like you have high expectations of a certain team that, okay, this team is most likely going to make GPL, but for the landscape of Singapore, I feel like it's a little bit different because when I watch most of their games, like it's, okay, I can't even figure out which team is going to be proceeding to the next level because there's a lot of talent in Singapore, in all fairness to them. We saw Resurgence, another one of those strong teams in Singapore, unfortunately won't be representing the country this time around. Sovereign having quite a dominant performance during the 2018 spring season in their own region. So I'm wondering how this is going to go down for them, though, because we're seeing a lot of people that are somewhat new to the Southeast Asian scene.
So as for Sovereign, they're no strangers to the Braum pick when asked for Ascension. They really love to pick that up most of the time. You would see Ascension picking up this Braum, but now the Caitlyn has been opened up. This can potentially open up maybe for, let's say, a Tarka or Tom Kent, but looks like for Ascension, they would be quick. They'll be the ones to try and pick up their mid laner.
Yeah, looks like we are seeing a little bit of a hover over on this Echo. If you do notice, both Rise and Swain were bound out by Sovereign, so I think Ascension Gaming are very much intent on making sure that they secure something for G4 before further bans are thrown up. But okay, looks like the
Camille's open, so
yeah, a lot of options actually.
And Tom Kench also. Okay. So there's actually thinking a lot of things because they can either pick up this Tom Kench, which they will finalize it. Yes, you pick up Caitlyn and you get Tom Kench. And as for Sovereign, they will be finishing up their phase 1 with the Gangplank. Now, we'll be moving on to our phase 2 of the drafting phase. Opening band starting with Sovereign, with the Vladimir.
No surprise right there, Vladimir. This is another champion that G4 had much success with, not just within their local region, but also in past GPLs. You also have to take note, one thing that I like about Ascension Gaming's storyline right here is they pretty much got reverse sweep by Young Generation during the
2-3.
Yes,
the GPL.
So, and if you're going to notice, one of the reasons why they lost out on this last game, because G4 had quite the underwhelming performance. So I think heading into this GPL, fresh start for Ascension Gaming, this is redemption for him right here. Like, if there's anybody that I feel that is hungry for that victory on this side squad, it's definitely G4 off to prove himself. But he's pretty much proven himself as a efficient mid laner. It's just that proving himself to bring back the glory to Thailand for this particular GPL now that Vietnam's out of the picture.
Yeah, of course. It all comes down to redemption for these players. The fact that Vietnam having their own region just gives such a boost to the other teams and other regions. But now, looks like Ascension thinking strong here. They will remove the Galio. So for Sovereign, now on phase 2, they'll be the first ones to pick here. As for Ascension, we have yet to see a mid laner and a jungler for their side. Normally, the Azir is open, the same as the Rise is open. But looks like for Sovereign, they will be taking away the Azir.
Yes, interesting enough, looks like Sovereign going to make sure that they take away the Azir from Ascension Gaming before they could take it for themselves in the case of our Thai squad right here, Ascension Gaming. We are waiting for those last 2 picks, though. I'm wondering what they'll be looking at as a potential alternative to give to G4 in this mid lane. We did see a little bit of a hover over the Echo, if I'm not mistaken, but looks like it is going to be the Talia, another champion which G4 is very comfortable on.
Check out the bans coming from Sovereign. The Rise, the Swain, Vladimir, and Cassiopeia has been removed for G4. Just goes to show that Sovereign, they are really trying to bottleneck or trying to choke pool of G4, but looks like, again, for Ascension, they love the Kazakhs, they love the Rise, they even love the Varus and the Braum combo, but we won't be seeing it this time, at least for Ascension. They would change, or they shift things up here, going for the Kazakhs plus the Caitlyn and Tankage in the bot lane.
One thing that I would like to highlight here for Ascension Gaming is that I was talking about earlier how this is probably one of my favorite GPLs yet, because almost every single team has stepped up, whether in terms of how they played out their local leagues or with the roster changes that they've gone through thus far. I really find it refreshing that Ascension Gaming was able to pick up on Intresso, and they were able to find much success with some of their newer players like Rocky, like Rich. If you remember, some of the more familiar faces that you'd like to look back on then was players like Warlock. But we aren't going to be seeing them this time around with the recent switcheroos that Ascension Gaming went through. But from what I'm seeing here, this is probably one of their most optimal player sets yet. It's just that for when they competed in Thailand, heading into the GPL, I feel like that's a different story because everyone else has stepped up their game, and we have seen Ascension kind of struggle a bit these last few GPLs. So I'm wondering, with that redemption, with that motivation of wanting redemption, will it translate into a victory? But let's go ahead and review these last few picks here. So both sides have pretty much locked up their compositions now.
As for Ascension, I gotta say that they are opening up this day one with a great performance. I mean, going for, let's say, quick annotation reversals. We saw this in the first game when they went against Polyper Hunters. As for Ascension, I'm not that scared for them. They're entering this strong. But as for Sovereign, coming from Singapore, can they be the ones to at least dictate their day one?
Well, you know what? As far as Sovereign goes, I feel like they kind of have that boost in themselves, particularly Arakelik, Mexilu, and Krab, because they have performed above and beyond against the Thai squad during All-Star. Although, like I mentioned, All-Star is different, of course. I mean, All-Star was kind of a for fun-ish event because, you know, it's just different players from different teams coming together. The favorites, the fan favorites.
We also know the Rift rivals. Don't forget about that. So, as for experience and the players entering the GPL, without a doubt, they have the veteran experience entering this battle arena. I mean, I would say when mixing against all the regions, with 5 regions, to see who is a stronger one.
And I'm wondering, though, because two different stories here, I'd say. Because for Ascension Gaming, like I mentioned, it's kind of like a redemption arc for them if they're able to pull it off all the way to the finals of the GPL by reclaiming that champion title. But we're just going to have to see, though.
We'll see it once we load on to the Rift. As of now, this is our 3rd game in the GPL group stages day 1. My name is Vulcan again. With me was Arctic. So your child guys are entering this day 1. And I gotta say, what a treat we have here for everyone in the GPL. New format, and the teams are look very excited.
Yeah, and I mean, like we mentioned, this is probably the last GPL that we'll be seeing before we transition to these new changes for Southeast Asia. I'm really, really excited for them. But yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to, since this is the last GPL, why not go out with a bang? Why not make history to at least be the last champion that we'll ever see off of the GPL format before we head on to greater things for esports in the sea. We'll just have to see, though, man. I'm really wondering, because I feel that for Philippines and Thailand, they're kind of the favorites right now because of their previous performance in the GPL. But like I mentioned, everyone else has pretty much stepped up. Singapore, Malaysia, even Indonesia, like with the roster changes that they've gone through, they're pretty much in it to win it. Like I mentioned, this is their last opportunity in the GPL right here. So man, it's kind of tricky to tell. But I guess so far we have pretty much established that the favorites are pretty much near one step closer to making playoffs, because looking at the standings right here, we do have Ascension Gaming and Mineski with 1 win each up on the notch of their belt. Meanwhile, we are yet to see Kuala Lumpur Hunters and Bigatron Esports secure their first win, having fallen to both the Thai and Philippine squad respectively during Game 1 and Game 2. Sovereign, of course, this is going to be their first game for the GPL, so we're going to be wondering, can they rake up their first win against Ascension Gaming, who has pretty much been living up to what is expected of Thailand's premier squad right here? So we'll just have to see how that translates. I'm really looking forward to this game from the Singaporean squad, though, because Kra, Mexilu, as well as Arakelik, I feel like they have better momentum going into this than the other members because of what experience they did manage to garner during 2017. Going into 2018, I have very high hopes for them. So far, we're just waiting to get back into this game right here. So far, day 1 has been going pretty well. Ascension Gaming, of course, sitting at the top of the ladder. But then again, it's still pretty much early on to tell this. We've only just started the GPL. Heading into the playoffs, though, I think the bigger thing here is that who we might be seeing potentially not make that, how do I put it? Make the top 4. Because even though you lose out on Vietnam right here, you still pretty much have that same format wherein we get the top 4 teams. So we'll just have to see how that goes down here, because there's only one team that's not going to be making playoffs here. So
We once danced in harmony with the land, until the tyrants defiled it. But when they shattered our spirit, we became sharpest at the break. We are the defenders of the First Lands, and we remember the cost of peace. There is beauty and tradition in the dance. Grace in every step. Power in every turn. Our dance is an honor to perform. And the last thing our enemies will ever see.
Enemy EXO detected. All safeties disengaged.
Nowhere to run. No time to cry. Maybe next time, shoulder pads.
Greetings. Your arsenal of death is now available.
Thank you, EXO. Eat missile. Feeding time. The law of attraction. Stay out of space, kid. Ooh, let's see how they like these girls.
They will not like these girls because they will be dead.
Aim.
Fire!
Another day, another name off the list.
Like we'll be heading into what is Game 3 between Ascension Gaming of Thailand versus Sovereign of Singapore for the 2018 Garena Premier League Spring Season Group Stage. Let's head on to the Rift.
And already we're seeing this Gangplank going in for some vision control. He was going to go put a ward there, but immediately gets spotted there. Looks like we're seeing 3 members in the side of the blue of Ascension trying to establish, just going for point guard.
It's interesting to note that towards the top side, I mean, with this Sion versus Gangplank Maxim, I think Shinsekai is just going to try to build up on whatever gold he can.
It's going to be a very easy lane. In a way, it's a free lane for this Gangplank to just stack up the Klepto with his parlay, and the Sion can't do much to really trying to counter the Kleptomancy because Sion has to really get in range to land those skills, and while he's channeling the Q, he won't move, so easy Q right there.
Meanwhile, looking at here what's happening, so for both junglers here, looks like we'll be seeing starts off here towards red buff, so different transitions within rotations for both Entresso and Ice Destiny. Wondering how this will play out though, because as far as this bot lane right here, I feel like Lloyd's definitely gonna be a little bit more safer against potential ganks whenever Ice Destiny tries to push it because of Rich on this Tom Kench. But okay, Entresso
already knowing that he knows this is Sejuani went for the Raptors, so this blue buff will go away free because we don't see anyone responding towards the invade of Ascension. This goes without any problem.
So unfortunate here for the jungler, but it's like they'll be meeting up. Okay.
He's been spotted. So what can they do here? It will just be the Kazakhs scaring away the Sejuani. So nothing will happen here just yet. But we know this guy here. I mean, he would always stay in the lane, try to stay in the jungle, and tries to steal the wolves. Does not succeed. Gets the damage dealt and trying to slow down this Sejuani.
Yeah, Entresso proving that he's probably one of the better junglers in town in the GPL now that Levi's kind of out of the picture. So pretty much everybody's up for taking the title of being efficient at their best role. So, but so far, interesting plays here from Entresso, being able to capitalize on taking that blue from the side of Sovereign. If you notice, there wasn't really any form of control coming in from the Singaporean squad towards that particular buff, no vision. I think it was more towards the... Okay, so it isn't even towards the wolf, so quite unfortunate right there for Ice Destiny.
This is actually huge for Ascension. Not only that for Entresso, he took away the blue buff, he also managed to just scare away the Sejuani immediately, making the Sejuani slow down the pathing, and not just that, the clear is just not there for the wolves. So this is huge for Entresso and huge for Ascension because this Sejuani, normally when you're talking about Sejuani, you want to go for those early guys at level 2 at least, but you can't do that anymore seeing how you're so behind.
Yeah, and it's kind of tricky right here because Ice Destiny, he's going to have a little bit of a slower time going up towards transitioning into ganks. So I think the laners for Sovereign will have to hold on in a bit there if ever they want to eventually try to capitalize on the Sejuani pick by going for these eventual ganks.
But at least when it comes to the late game, this Sejuani can do something about the early deficit that Ice Destiny had. So it's not much of a huge problem for Sovereign, but it's something that Ascension can use to help them get a better lead than Sovereign.
And I think with that said, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because like the consolation here for Ice Destiny is that even if he struggles a bit as far as what Camps Intresso denies from him, what value you get out of the Sejuani if you can transition it into early game lane ganks, at least make it a little bit more worth it towards the mid to late once you could set up for better team fights. So that's something that Sovereign has to work with the Sejuani. Unlike for Intresso, for example, if he's the one that falls behind, that's a Kha'Zix he's running. There's not really much you can do unless you can get pickoffs to try to remedy that. But so far, from what we have seen, a lot of proactivity was able to get successful pickoffs from the camps of Ice Destiny. So I think so far so good here for Ascension overall.
And so far, what Intresso did was, yes, as a Kha'Zix, do what you can at the early phases of the game. Now we're looking at his items. You can see 2 long swords being picked up, may build to a Serene Dirk, and note that we are playing on patch 8.5 where the changes to the Dust Blade, the nerfs to it, is not in effect in this game.
You have to take note from what we did see earlier between that squabble between Intresso and Ice Destiny. Intresso deals quite a bit of damage, but it's like we'll figure that out right there. A little bit of a trade-off right there.
Oh, there's the Weaver's Wall for the cut-off there. That's big trouble for Ice Destiny, getting clipped towards the Weaver's Wall. He managed to flash over it.
Yes, luckily Flash was up for Ice Destiny right there. Didn't expect it expend it in that trade-off earlier when Intresso went for that gutsy take on the blue buff of Sovereign.
Oh dear.
But Rich though
gets devoured, forced to flash away. Now in big trouble here with the Ignite ticking. That is the first blood going to Ascension.
Yeah, and looks like Yautza, that Ezreal. Mexi almost went down there, but luckily was able to flash. But you have to take note, at the end of the day, that's a lot of value Ascension gets off that, because not only do they get first blood, they also expend quite a number of summoners from the side of Sovereign, and I think that will be much more fluid for Intresso, because that could translate to better success in terms of games.
This Kha'Zix in the early game doing all that he can, especially the fact that trying to make the Sejuani's early presence weaker, because we know why the Sejuani was picked. We always know that when we go for the jungle, you go for the Sejuani or the Jarvan, but this gets immediately denied so much because this Kha'Zix does things much better.
And I mean, this is Intresso we're talking about. I think, if anything, if you're going to look at who managed to benefit with upgrades to roster across these different teams in the GPL, I'd say Ascension definitely a check up on that. Intresso just pretty much comfortable to be back with the Thai squad, and I think so far looking pretty good for him. Very much complementary to the strengths of Ascension Gaming from what they've demonstrated in previous terms going into their local league as of the 2018 spring season. So we'll just have to see though if that actually translates to positive results in victories going into the GPL, because I think with what input that I got, Ascension Gaming, some consider their changes okay, some consider it a step down from their previous roster, especially when they started losing out on key elements like Norway, like Warlock. So we'll just have to see though.
That check towards the blue side. The blue buff was successfully taken away by Intresso, but for Sovereign, they tried to counter it with a Cannon Mirage plus the Divide, but in the end, they got nothing out of that value. Ascension got so much, burning the globals and burning that Ember's Divide.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sovereign, Ice Destiny was a little bit far off to actually try anything to try to get value out of that. So overall, still we're kind of back to square one with Ascension having that leg up. But then again, I think things will get all the more explosive. I really think it's up to Ice Destiny here to try to set things up once he does access to making sets with that ultimate.
And as for the top lane, and now we're also seeing the junglers, when it comes to positive results, as you said, Artek, we're seeing the results of what happened during the early phases of the invasion in the game, where Ascension and Intresso took away the blue buff. Not just that, even scared away Ice's Destiny outside of his jungle, and if we look at the CS, that's a huge deficit for a jungler. And not just that, burning that flash so early. So now you look at the KDF to Sejuani. Cannot do much. Not much intervention, but looks like they're trying to eye this bot lane. The tower's low. Can they force the dive? No, but this will be Idrissa going on to the Braum. Going in and out in stealth mode. Trying to shift the damage on this Braum, but still has to be very careful. Has to respect the fact that that's a Braum and an answer. And you can see in the map that when it comes to mid lane, oh, that's difficult. We don't see any respawn for the Azir because the Talia G4 is doing so much work pressuring the mid lane.
Yeah, but looks like that's going to be a turret along with a set coming in from Ascension Gaming. Oof.
And along with the set and the first tower of the game, that will be another pickup onto Ice Destiny.
Great play right there coming in from Ascension. As soon as that tower went down, G4 going for the Weaver's Wall to get that pickup onto Ice Destiny, and that's going to slow down Sovereign a tad bit more here. And you have to take note, unfortunately for SVR's bot lane, Craw wasn't at level 6 just yet. They actually tried to remedy that fight into a team fight that Sovereign could have taken, and that's just all the more value that Ascension Gaming's getting out of this. Bot lane turret, transition that into a dragon. What more can you ask for?
That is beautiful, I would say. I mean, that's what you want.
Textbook.
At most, it's very textbook. Yes, we see they got the first blood, the first turret, now the first Infernal Drake. Everything in one smooth transition. Now, the question is, Sovereign, they are trying to bounce back here. And not just that, the Ezreal and the Braum work well. But when you're talking about patch 8.5, where it's all about early game pressure, the Ezreal could not have enough damage. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and I feel like the unfortunate thing here for Sovereign is that they weren't able to really capitalize on the Sejuani thus far. I mean, there's just so much they could have done to remedy within the earlier parts, the first 10 minutes of the game. But if anything, they just allowed Ascension to build up on what advantages that they can. And we'll just have to see, though, because the thing that Sovereign has to look out for here is if Entresso really gets things going on this cause, not just Entresso actually, if the rest of Ascension just continue to spiral forward in this game, then Sovereign's going to have a hard time just coming back, even with having tanky front lines in the form of Ice Destiny and Craw. Just the damage out from Ascension, they're just going to shred through all that tankiness. So, something that the Singaporean squad has to take into account of within these next few minutes, if they can at least try to balance things out. Because if you're going to look at that goal difference, it's really starting to build up in form of Ascension.
Actually, yeah, I have to agree with you. Because when it comes to the lead, it's really leaning towards the Ascension side. As of now, the objective that's available to grab is the Rift Herald. They may eye this out. But as for Sovereign, a rough start for Ice Destiny. Really shows the butterfly effect, the whole landslide that came down to his jungle.
And so far from what we've been seeing here, I mean, Ascension Gaming, what I really love about the plays that they're making thus far on this map is it's very fluid. It's pretty much coordinated right there, especially that bot lane right there. I think that's a classic example of what synergy they have as a team immediately as soon as taking down an objective. Just beautiful set from G4. And I think that's something that we'll be seeing a hell lot more as this game goes along. Sovereign, they're a little bit slow in terms of the response to that though. And I think that's a bit worrying, especially if you're going to consider how Ascension Gaming has been playing it. Quite smooth, quite... what's the word I'm looking for? They're just very resolute on what plays that they make. They're very fast on their feet. So could be tricky for the Singaporean squad. Let's go ahead and check out this replay though. So it's interesting because Ice Destiny was able to back away. Craw might have overextended his boundaries a bit there. So we eventually get that first blood right there. Mexi almost suffers as a casualty himself. There's just so many scenarios where it could have gone way worse for Sovereign. So we'll just have to see how this goes down within the next few minutes. I'm really hoping that we see some form of remedy to balance out the playing field here because looks like Ascension Gaming, they're really starting to build up on that momentum.
I guess when it came to Sovereign's, let's say, early game jungle really being bad, I would say, not just from the invasion, but also the fact that he was counter-ganked, counter-jungled so many times to make that Sejuani in a way, in the early phases, quite useless. That was what Sovereign wanted to use, the Sejuani, to help ease out the lanes. They have the Braum to at least assist in the Bifrost. But that didn't happen because what Entresso did was completely shut down the jungle of Sovereign.
You know what would be interesting here, Vulcan? Imagine if Ascension Gaming does manage to pull off another win on just day one. I feel like that's just okay, you could look at it from just the small game
Always
perspective.
ended in a high note.
Yeah, always ended on a high note, and it just builds up all the more positivity and momentum for them heading into day 2, heading into the potential playoffs. Because I feel, if I'm not mistaken, if they secure this win right here, then it's almost guaranteed that they'll make that climb right there. If anything, just an extra victory to secure the slot. It just gives them all the more better chances. And I gotta say, looking pretty good for them.
Well, when it comes to Ascension in their past GPL performances, they were able to, at most, guarantee themselves the playoff spot, moving into the playoffs. So sometimes in their last run with Young Generation, they got reverse swept, and they went a 2-3. But before, when Vietnam had 2 slots to bring in Young Generation, they ended with a 2nd spot against the Gigabyte Marines. So as for Ascension, I wouldn't be too surprised when they're performing in the GPL the first day. They already know their goals. They already set themselves to be the first seed entering day 1.
And
rather the end of it.
Yeah. Very high expectations, but looks like we'll be heading back into this game right now, guys. Once again, you are witnessing Game 3 between Ascension Gaming of Thailand versus Sovereign of Singapore. Ascension Gaming already building up quite a bit right here. Let's go ahead and see if Sovereign can make that comeback to equal the playing field.
That is really brutal what Ascension is doing against the jungler of Sovereign. Look at the items of this runner. Normally you would see that at least at this point had 3 assists, 3, I would say, at least visited lanes to try and help ease it out. But they couldn't do anything. So what is Ascension doing right now? Further removing the resources in their jungle. The blue was being removed, and this Azir, with the recent changes to the mage items, the Azir needs a lot more mana. But looks like in the top lane, they will start a fight with the Glacial Fissure as the starting blow. Teleport coming in, the barrage was there to try and disengage the fight.
Yeah, they try to go for Rich right there, but then again, that's a Tahm Kench they were going for. I mean, unless you get a full lockdown on him with optimal damage, it's pretty much tricky to take him down in that one go. And unfortunately, Sovereign weren't able to get much out of that. A little bit of pressure, but as far as getting back into the game, still quite the climb. And if anything, if you're going to look at the gold that Sovereign has managed to rake up, I feel like the reason why it's not as big as you would expect, it's probably because of
ooh, what was that? Over the brush, outside vision. That is a surprise to Shinsekai. It will be taken down by Andresso.
And Ascension Gaming, they're just quick on their feet in terms of what plays that they made. Shinsekai there, unfortunately, quite tricky because, if anything, he was quite extended in a lane where he didn't have a turret. And you also have to take into account, not just that, there wasn't that much vision for him to even have business that extended into lane into the first place. And if anything, it just allowed Ascension Gaming to capitalize on that fodder sitting in the bot lane.
Looks like for Andresso, he will go for the Warrior's Enchantment and the Phage. So looks like you won't be seeing any assassin items, but at least this lead is more than enough for Sovereign to know that despite having a gang plan that can split push for days and farm up that gold, he is always at a risk of getting picked off, just like what happened in the bot lane.
Yeah, as far as gold relevance, I think the hope and a prayer here for Sovereign is, luckily, it's not actually just Shinsekai that's running Cleft Hill. It's actually Mexilu as well. If you notice, even though he did fall behind a bit, he's still almost up to par in items in comparison to Lloyd here. I mean, Lloyd, because if you're going to notice who's been spearheading the fray for Ascension Gaming thus far, Entresso mostly, along with G4, just a little bit shy, 66% of kill participation of what Ascension has managed to take thus far. But this is going to be bigger right here. Taking that Rift Herald, that's going to be all the more pressure. And you also have to take into account what the damage output for Ascension Gaming is right now.
It will be huge, Arctic, because when you look at Ascension's lineup, it's all about responding to where the skirmishes are. There is the Talia's Weaver's Wall. They have the top catches, Abyssal Voyage. So for Sovereign, they're lacking on that aspect. Okay, we gotta try and respond to their response. So we now see onto the side of the Frog, but an unsealed spellbook gets the teleport. But now Ascension is trying to push away this mid lane with the Rift Herald. They're just happy with that because the Drake has just spawned. They would eye the next This is the second Infernal Drake.
Yeah, I'd say even though they weren't able to capitalize too much on that repair as far as turret sieges, I mean, I think it pretty much balances out because what they did manage to trade in exchange for that is an Infernal Drake. And you have to take note, that's the second Infernal Drake for Ascension game. I feel like the stars are aligning for this Thai squad right now because you get double Infernal. Looking at the composition that they have, I've been talking about this time and time again, the damage output is absolutely insane. It doesn't matter even though they have the Sejuani and the Braum. They're just going to shred through all that tankiness. And I'm kind of fearful for Sovereign at this point because they don't have that lasting power in team fights. And technically, team fights I feel would have actually been their advantage because they have all the crowd control in the world.
We're seeing the Weaver's Wall coming in hot, and that will be the Ezreal forced to use the shift away. Okay, he just used the Arcane Shift to get away from the Weaver's Wall, but this is the power of the Talia. Rushing that Luden's Echo, you want to go for the priority in your lane, but looks like a trade-off will happen in the top lane when it comes to resource-wise, summoners, and no summoners were burned actually, just ultimates.
Luckily for Mexi here, he was running Ezreal.
Top of a ward.
Okay, that might actually be a potential. Okay, so just a little bit of a scare up onto Mexi. Ice Destiny was in the vicinity in case a fight did break out. And I feel like if a fight did break out, that could have been a remedy. But look at Intresso in the midst of everything. Manages to take that red buff again away from Ice Destiny. If I were Ice Destiny, I'd be pretty frustrated right now.
Ooh, Emperor's Device still manages to knock back the Scion, but the stun still managed to channel through. Looks like for Destiny, he gets a sweet revenge onto Intresso, takes him down. That's maybe a revenge frustration outside there.
Man, at least a little bit of a pick-off right there. Consolation for Sovereign. And did go to Ice Destiny, though. I feel it would have been much more ideal to maybe if it had gone to one of the carries. But it's a small step up, at least. That's what I've been looking for. At least these small steps for Sovereign to get back into this game. Looks like they are on the offense right now. We'll take full advantage of that by sieging this top turret. I don't think... Okay, so what Ascension can do here is at least clear out the wave so that Sovereign is going to get an easy take on that turret.
Here comes Abyssal Voyage with the Scion. Trying to get back with a stand behind me. Glacial Fissure is there for the disengage. Q. Oh, gets the knockup there, but there will be no follow-up.
Good timing on that knockup there coming in from Hurrah to make sure that Ascension Gaming
check out the map. You're seeing the Talia. G4 is in the red sides. Looks like he won't push. Okay, he won't respond. He's still focused on his lane. Just getting the priority, and then he may intervene the top lane, but looks like we're seeing movements from Arcalic. Vision being established here by both teams.
Yes, meanwhile, G4, take note, ultimate is up for him already. So, in case anything broke up towards top side, I like that preemptiveness right there coming in from Ascension. I mean, even though there wasn't anybody in the vicinity from Sovereign to actually respond to that turret take towards top side, G4, as an extra precaution, was just lingering towards the jungle side of SVR in case there was. So it just goes to show how forward-thinking Ascension Gaming is in this game. Like, before they actually make a play, they already know what parameters they have to work with prior to executing.
But looks like for Sovereign, they will be going for at least a response here. They were trying to here, and immediately flashes over that Weaver's Wall straight to Ice Destiny. He removes Intresso. He was trying to take down the Ezreal.
Yeah, a little bit too gutsy there by Ascension Gaming. They do lose out on Intresso as a result. I guess, again, it's these small pickups coming in from Sovereign. But what's interesting here is I've been talking about how they have the double Klepto. But you also have to take into account that even with that advantage to try to keep up equal in terms of gold, gold lead is still slowly building up in favor of Ascension here. So they're just pretty much salvaging what they can Sovereign as far as pickoffs to try to get back into this game. There is still potential, though, in all fairness to the Singaporean squad.
Definitely, because when you're talking about the Kazakhs, it's all about early damage, early control. But when you're talking about the Sejuani, at the 20-minute mark, you're seeing the components building towards the war mug. So, for Sovereign, they want to go for extended fights. They want to go for poke damage. They have the Azir and the Ezreal. So, this really benefits the build that the Sejuani is going for. But when it comes to Ascension, they want to go in and out real quick. The Kazakhs is the Kazakhs indeed. Looks like they are trying to control the red side here. Can a Mirage there? Fisher for that beautiful knockout and the slow zone. G4 just took that crop without any trouble, and now for that double kill over that wall.
Ooh, man, things are really starting to build up here.
Oh god, red side of the jungle of Sovereign is getting overrun by Ascension. They are forced to back away, suffering 2 casualties.
Yeah, 2-0 in favor of Ascension Gaming right then and there. Take note, this is becoming all the more crucial. We have already hit past the 20-minute mark. Baron is up.
Look at Kha'Zix in the stealth mode, eyeing Azir. Low on health, getting poked really hard. Pops the barrier. Low on health. Gamla going in. The side brush. Beats the Kha'Zix. Regrets his decision. Eats an orange. Survives for now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like they could have taken down Interessa right there. Arakelic as well as Mexi were a little bit slow on to responding to that. We did already see that Shinsekai was getting quite a bit of damage onto the Kha'Zix. Had that been a faster response, I feel like that could have been a pickup onto the jungler for Ascension Gaming, but still, we are pretty much at that point where we're back to square one, where we were at like a few minutes earlier.
Yeah, I gotta say for Sovereign, they're trying their best to come back to this game, and it's working well out because they have the Azir and the Ezreal. They have late game. They have late game. Definitely they have late game plus the Sejuani. But as for Ascension, they had a great lead, and they used that lead to get to Infernos. That's the investment they had, and now they have to wait things out here. Because as the game progresses, Sovereign will just ramp up the items and try and make the Kha'Zix lead in a way, make it a better. Try to make the lead that he established gone, because a lead's only a lead when you're ahead, but at this point, it's not anymore ahead because the members of Sovereign, they're doing their best to catch up.
Sovereign, though, not a bad dragon take. By having that out of combat movement.
Oh, what a sneaky move there by Dressel. Goes for the Braum, low on health, one more hit. He gets the kill, forced to flash out. Sejuani uses the Glacial Prison to lock someone down, but in the end, just was a slow zone.
That's what I'm talking about right there, Vulcan. That is the damage output that Ascension Gaming has. They don't care if they're contending with a tank right there. They know that they have all the damage in the world to just take down a target when they commit to it, and looks like they could get a lot more value out of this. Ice Destiny has to make something out of this.
He does not have the smite. The wall was used a bit too late. He was trying to cut off the Sejuani, but in the red side, they're trying to meet Ice here. Azir going in with a shifting sand. Shut down on to G4. Right now, Ascension, they're running for the hills, while Azir with a shifting sands plus the Ezreal will set up for that great double kill, and now it is Sovereign in the Baron pit taking the Baron bar.
That was tricky coming in from Ascension Gaming. A little bit of an overstep by calling for that Baron. There were still a lot of healthy members from Sovereign. Sure, Kura was down at one point, but still.
Teleport coming in. Note that, ooh, what a shame. That leap over that wall did not succeed. You saw what happened there. Azir with that divide.
This is the opportunity that Sovereign was looking for. Not only were they able to take quite a number of members from the side of Ascension, they were also able to secure the Baron. This pretty much puts them back on the map in this game. That gold lead slowly closed out, not equal just yet, but it's highly workable for Sovereign now that they have the Baron. Let's go ahead and see what value that they can get in terms of objectives they can siege at this point.
Let's see. Is there a better command inside for a Sovereign? No, we are seeing more. You don't need it here, because there's a Gangplank. So, as for Sovereign, what a great comeback they are having in this game. This is the same thing I saw in the game 1 where Ascension tried to go for the Baron too early. What happened there? KLH managed to steal away the Baron buff, and not just that, was able to take down the inhibitors.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an overestimate of what they could potentially take.
Looks like the overestimation that they did was working against them. And with the Baron buff, they're taking away the bot lane.
Yep. And there you go. So Sovereign slowly capitalizing on what advantages that they can. I wonder though, at the end of the day, once Baron is down, what they do next, because what I'd like to see is at least equal out the playing field here. Probably the cherry on top is if they could at least pull the gold lead in their favor. But I think at least this allows Sovereign to build up on their core strengths with the composition that they have, because you have to take note, there's massive damage across the board coming in from Ascension. There's potential holds through the Talia, through the Scion, and for Sovereign, however, if they could get a good layering of crowd control to take down a target right away from the side of Ascension without Rich influencing a potential save, then that's definitely highly workable for Sovereign right here. At least with the Baron buffs take, This allows them to just... Ooh, okay, a bit of a fight.
What a call-off by Ascension! Couple that up with a Weaver's Wall and the unstoppable onslaught of the Scion. That is an easy pickup for Ascension. What an engage coming from the blue side. And now Sovereign, a bit confused. They're forced to try to respawn. Got nothing out of that.
That was quite a bit unfortunate. So by losing out on Ice Destiny, I mean, like I was saying, what I would love to see from Sovereign is if they could try to capitalize on that power buff, maybe siege some objectives for themselves. But losing out on one member, this slows them down a bit. It kind of hinders them from that push potential or that pull potential. So that's just going to be Ascension Gaming slowly coming back and capitalizing. There you go.
This is Ascension Gaming also from the misplay in the Baron Pit. They're the ones trying to remedy again their mistakes. Now getting two pickups into the side of Sovereign. But now, Sovereign getting that Baron buff, great. But did they do something about it and try to get more leads from that Baron buff? I don't see it because I just saw right there in the scoreboard. Still, the turrets are not being pushed as much. Actually, no turrets were rewarded during the Baron power play from Sovereign. They cannot do it because, as of now, it's really difficult knowing that there's a Kha'Zix lingering around the fog of war.
Yeah, and I think the unfortunate thing there is that if you look at what Sovereign's positioning was on the map prior to those pickoffs from Ascension Gaming, it wasn't really playing to what strength their team composition had. Like I mentioned, if they're kind of grouped up together, could get a full-on combo, could get a full-on lockdown, that would have been workable in the midst of sieging against Ascension Gaming. But since that wasn't really the game plan at the time, they kind of lose out on that. And we're back into a position where in Ascension Gaming, they could still just go back to what they were doing minutes ago.
So far for Ascension, Sovereign spotted out Impresso on the red side with the red buff. But now, they're eyeing the next Drake here, getting the Scuttle. Close call there, Prison does not connect. Natalia using the seismic shove to try and jump down this Azir. Does not happen here, and the Glacial Fissure will be the extension for Sovereign, blocking him down, but Rich in the end gets eliminated, and now for Sovereign, they'll be the ones to punish Ascension.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's the fight that I've been waiting for Sovereign. They have the composition to lock down targets, take them down one by one. All they need to do is just not allow Ascension Gaming to overwhelm Sovereign themselves. And because of that, they're going to get pickoffs. They're going to get this turret in the mid lane. Ooh, almost for that Azir.
Close call there. One more hit from the Azir. He managed to get the the shield. But looks like the Scion is joining in the fight here. They may go for a team fight, but knowing that there's no one for Ascension that can start one or go for a engage, the Scion is just the ultimate, so can't do anything there. They will be the ones to dear. This is actually going to be the third Infernal Drake spawn, and they're trying their best to try and take away the Infernal.
But still, man, great moves right here coming in from Sovereign. And this is pretty much optimal for them because once they reach the later parts, especially Arcalic on this Azir, Mexi on this Ezreal, Shinsekai on this Gangplank, then that's where they're going to reach better leverage to contend with Ascension Gaming, especially once Ice Destiny and Kraw become tanky enough to withstand the damage that Ascension Gaming has across the board. And looking pretty good for them if they could hold out a little bit more. If anything, they're slowly equaling out the playing field. Once they start equaling out turrets as well, then that's where we're back on even playing terrain for both sides.
That's definitely correct because for Ascension, again, taking away the third Infernal Drake is really worth for them. And now, for the Baron Buff being live in, let's say, 47 seconds, I wonder what can they do here.
I mean, with this Baron up within the next few seconds, this is going to be quite interesting because if you notice, this is like the first time in the game we're starting to see Sovereign kind of start making proactive plays, because if anything, it's mostly been Ascension asserting their dominance as of what lead they managed to build up from within the first, like 15 to 20 minutes. But now we're finally seeing Sovereign turning things around for themselves. And I feel like this Baron, that's going to be quite the game changer for either of these teams right there. It's either Ascension just getting back on track for lost ground these past few minutes, or Sovereign really starting to build up towards their advantage to the win condition that they have with this composition.
And also for Sovereign, not being scared anymore of the Kazakhs. No longer they are oppressed by the Kazakhs, but looks like for Ascension, a second take in the Baron pit.
Ooh.
Barrage in place, River Ross to buy some time. The Baron buff will go uncontested towards Ascension without any problem thanks to the Weaver's Wall, but they will try and stop them from getting away without any casualties. But in the end, for Sovereign, they were trying their best to at least pick someone off. In the end, they were the ones getting chopped.
Yeah, that was pretty interestingly played out right there. Sure, Ascension did lose out on Rocky, but they were able to secure the Baron nonetheless. Ice Destiny was trying to go for that steal. Unfortunately, was not able to get that smite in on correctly. That was a very high-pressure moment, though, in all fairness to him. But let's go ahead and check out what transpired right then and there. So if you notice, G4 using the Weaver's Wall to isolate Sovereign from contesting this all the further. I think the Weaver's Wall was ultimately a throw-off because even though they weren't able to take the Baron, they could have at least salvaged this by turning the tides of this fight in their favor. It's just that since Ice Destiny went straight in without any support coming in from Sovereign right there, they weren't able to capitalize on just that. And at the end of the day, it was just Ascension Gaming, again, like I mentioned, it's just very forward thinking here. Great set there coming in from G4 to make sure that in the midst of not getting that Baron, Sovereign just not being able to pick up at least in response more members than they could have against Ascension Gaming.
And this is going to be the second Baron going towards Ascension, their first Baron in the game. But as for Sovereign, they tried their best. Yes, they tried to go for that steal with the Sejuani. But in the end, it was just too much because of the fact that when you look at the levels, the Kazakhs is level 16, the Sejuani is level 40.
Yes, man, great lockdown there coming in onto Impressive.
Oh, look at that Weaver's Wall. But in the end, G4 kind of clipped himself here with a great three-man seismic shove, but he was a bit too late there, a bit too alone. So for Sovereign, they immediately chunk him down with Maxi on this. Ezreal just poking out the damage here. Cyan by Rocky trying to block some damage. He'll be using the ultimate. Get away.
That was not optimal for G4 under any circumstances. If anything, he was trying to set things up for Ascension. In fact, at the end of the day, he gets caught off in that red.
Got clipped towards the red side wall. So very unfortunate for G4, but at least he tried to do something with it with a seismic shove. But now we are seeing three members of Ascension down. And as for Sovereign, all 5 members strong, they are pushing the mid lane.
Yeah, it looks like Ascension Gaming, they are almost up to go for the respawns here, but looks like Sovereign, they could get a lot of value out of this. They can go for an inhibitor.
Guaranteed inhibitor perhaps, but looks like they won't commit too much, seeing how G4 and Lloyd will be responding soon.
Man, I gotta say, Sovereign was a bit shaky within the earlier parts of this game, but they're granting themselves that opportunity to transition to what their key strengths are towards the late game. Ooh,
Resso with a fancy footwork there, trying to eye someone. I think he's trying to go for just a scare, but in the end, looks like for Sovereign and Ascension, both having equal chances winning this game.
Yeah, let's go and check out what happened right there. This is what I'm talking about. G4 immediately, as soon as Sovereign notices that G4 just kind of trapped himself towards that bump, it was just a topple down from there on out for Ascension.
And as for the top catch, great attempt by Rich to try and save G4, burning his flash but a bit too late. Pops the Solari immediately. But really, great attempt by Rich, but I guess for Sovereign, looking at those small mistakes, great job to try and capitalize them.
Not to mention, Ascension Gaming, they were a little bit off in terms of the positioning after the Weaver's Wall just kind of popped up. Not everybody was there to respond quick enough. And looks like, man, Sovereign, they're going to slowly reap out the rewards. Elder Drake is going to be almost up, so
this is going to be huge for Ascension if they take away this Elder Drake. Know that they're at 3 stacks in the Drake, and as for 3 Infernal Drakes, so what can you do here? Looks like for Sovereign, they have vision control. Oh, Prison's gone. This is Ascension with the advantage in ultimates. What's going to happen? So, looks like for Interessa, he won't stay long. We leaps over the wall. But for Sovereign, they won't commit too much, but they're still sticking around. Heavy emphasis on defense. This could be the set though. Reverse wall coming in. Looks like the Fissure was there in play. Shoves back Azir and the Braum, but they managed to get over the Weaver's wall.
Yes, unfortunately, after that Weaver's wall came in, Ascension Gaming didn't have much of a lockdown. They needed to damage their way to finish get pick up.
Oh, Elder being contested by Sovereign. The Sejuani in the scene here immediately gets chugged by the Caitlyn, forces out the flash midair. Lloyd takes down Ice Destiny. One member down, so can be Sovereign. Well, 3 members are very low. Looks like over the wall, but immediately the Divide was in place. Close call by the Azir. Pops the stasis, but in the end, Sovereign suffers 2 members down.
Yes, even with Ascension Gaming not being able to make the most out of that Weaver's wall, as soon as Sovereign try to commit to a fight, they turn things right back around, and they're going to be getting this Elder Drake, and that is so painful. That's 3 Infernal Drakes that they have on their side. Amplify that with the Elder Drake, you're just going to bring all the pain in the world to the Singaporean squad.
3 Infernal Drakes, and then the Elder Drake being stacked up with that. Oh boy. For Sovereign, no matter how much defensive items you have right now, this is gonna hurt. So, and the Baron will be live in 1 minute. So for Ascension, they have complete control.
But man, I mean, I'm wondering, Ascension Gaming, will they be able to capitalize on this Elder Drake with triple Infernal on their side? I'm wondering what maneuver they'll be going for next. If they'll try to use it to overwhelm Sovereign into shoves into objectives, or are they just going to use it for pressure towards this Baron? Because Baron is almost up. But then again, you also have to take into account Elder Drake. It's not really a long buff in itself as well.
They may just wait out for the buff to burn out. But time is in the side for Ascension because the Baron timer is on 22 seconds. If they don't try and contest this one, I gotta say for Ascension, their chances of ending this game will be really, really high. Almost at a guarantee because they have the Elder, 3 Infernal, and possibly the next Baron buff.
Yeah, and that's going to be a fast take on that Baron with that Elder Drake combined with the triple Infernal. So, Sovereign, they're slowly milking their way for the position. It looks like
that's not going to last long.
Not at all.
Immediately have, but still Ascension not taking any chances, uses the Weaver's Wall to try and stop any approach from Sovereign.
I'm actually surprised. Okay, I guess at the end of the day, Sovereign, they didn't want to overextend the boundaries a bit. Sure, you might think, hey, why didn't they contest the Baron?
Ooh, is that smart to do? The prison was used, but immediately, no follow-up coming from the side of Sovereign. They have spent the Glacial Prison of the Sejuani. 1 ultimate down for Sovereign.
Man, the stars are really aligning here for Ascension Gaming right now. Baron buff up, Elder Drake plus the triple Infernal. That's going to be quite the siege that they're pushing, and that's going to be whittling down Sovereign.
Inhibitor exposed. Ascension mowing the base down with the Baron buff. That will be the first inhibitor in the top side removed by Ascension. And now for Ascension, eyeing the mid lane. The inhibitor turret gets taken down. Now the second inhibitor is exposed for Sovereign. Ascension not taking any chances here. They may try and end this game. And now the minions, the Baron and Baron minions flowing into the base. Ascension pushing in. The turrets being the target. The cannon minions doing the work here. Sovereign trying to block it with the props unbreakable. Trying to save the turrets. Ascension not giving up just yet. They want the win. They want to end day 1 in a high note. Right now, the last Nexus turret is down for the count. Weaver's Wall cuts down the Azir. He shifts that in. The side going in with the ultimate. Stasis being popped, and immediately Ice Destiny gets removed. And now for Ascension, this is a go signal for them to go all in. The Nexus is exposed. Ascension with the Caitlyn gets that sweet double kill, and a shutdown for the Ezreal, trying to stop Ascension from ending the game. Sovereign not giving up just yet, but the Baron empowered minions are still in the base.
Yes, wow, just when you think that that could have been the picture-perfect finish for the Thai squad, Ascension Gaming not able to close it out. Sovereign, they held their ground right there. Great move. If you notice, Lloyd at first Ascension realized they weren't going to be able to take down that Nexus. They needed to fight it off against Sovereign. And Sovereign, they bought time for themselves. But take note, 2 inhibitors are down from them. This could eventually be game finished once Ascension goes back into the base of Sovereign to finish off the Nexus.
They won't be too greedy, so they will go for a soft reset here. But looks like not wasting the buff till the last drop. Looking at Dresso in the bot lane, removes the inner bot lane turret. Right now for the bot lane, only the inhibitor turret stands.
Yes, and you have to take note, once Ascension starts going for a full 5-man configuration towards bot lane, or who knows, maybe they could also still go for splits towards top mid for that extra measure to allow all these waves pushing in onto Sovereign. But let's go ahead and check out what happened here. So G4, he used the Weaver's Wall to try to isolate the members of Sovereign, and still, at this point, let's go ahead and check out what Ascension was. They weren't quite on the same page. If you notice, Ascension, Lloyd was going for these kills right here, but afterwards tried to finish off the game, not taking into account that Mexi was still pretty much alive and kicking. Take note, Mexi is pretty much one of the few salvations of Sovereign where he was able to at least build up on items. He still packs quite the punch right there, so you can't discount him just yet. Look at his standing, 8, 2, and 5. That was the salvation, the hope and the prayer that Sovereign was looking at to keep this game alive. But at the end of the day, they lost out on a lot, so this push right here could mark the end if they can't go for another fingers crossed defense.
Kill score 16-17 gold lead in favor of Ascension. As for items, we're nearing our 6 locked items. Let's see what can Sovereign do with their last inhibitor turret standing in the bot lane.
Yes, looks like Ascension Gaming, they're pretty much resolute on wanting to take it down. They're just waiting for that next wave to push in. Hoping the prayer for Sovereign is that Baron is already down, so it gives him a little bit of breathing room. But
here
still,
it comes, Ascension. Without the Baron buff expiring just now, same as the Elder. Looks like for Sovereign having a solid chance to try and stop the invasion of Ascension. They have the Gangplank's barrel. But now, 5 members committing towards this bot lane inhibitor turret. They don't want it to be taken down. They cannot afford to lose another inhibitor.
Man, oh man. Look at Sovereign. They're managing to hold their ground right here. Whatever wave comes in from Ascension Gaming with the lack of a Baron buff to empower that minion wave, they just managed to deal with that those waves coming in on them beautifully. And that's kind of the fingers crossed right here for Sovereign right now. But slowly, that tower is dwindling.
So far, I guess for Sovereign doing a great job by blocking the approach of Ascension. But if you look at the timers of the Elder Drake and the Baron, you can see right now that for Sovereign, what can they do at this point? Now it's the challenge for Sovereign to try and think on the spot.
Well, if you notice, there is actually a push coming in from Intresso, managing the waves towards top.
Weaver's Wall did not fully cut them off. Fissure is there under the tower, and Emperor's Divide to Sasayan and to the top bench. That will be Ascension getting butchered under the tower with a Sovereign trying their best to weave inside a fight. Azir still kicking, but the mana is gone. He cannot continue the fight. Pops the stasis immediately. Ascension gets the job.
Ooh. And that may be it, ladies and gents. Inhibitors have spawned for Sovereign, though. Ooh,
Nine over the Gangplank going for the 1v2. Looks like the Q will connect. Pops the Sterak's shield. Right now, the Gangplank trying the best to defend the base of Sovereign. The Q, one final hit, gets the hit. It's the orange and the parlay for the finishing blow.
Man, oh man, Sovereign, these prayers, whoever they're praying to right now, obviously working for them. They once again managed to hold their ground here. Inhibitors are up for them. This could potentially be workable for them, Vulcan. And you have to take note, this is what I've been talking about right here. Once Sovereign reaches those later parts in the game, allow Ice Destiny as well as Craw to soak up as much damage as they can in the front line of these fights and allow the carries to dish out what they can, especially with the optimal skills that they've reached at this point.
Now for Sovereign, all inhibitors have respawned. Top and mid has respawned just now, and the Elder Drake is live. As for Ascension, they're making their way in. We see Intresso in the blue side of Sovereign in the brush side. True Shot Barrage was used by the Ezreal to deny the waves incoming. And now for Sovereign, they will challenge the Elder.
looks like, Halderic, this could be the fight that determines the winner.
Reverse wall was used, but not quite there. Prison is there to lock down the Tom Catch. Here it comes. Blast going over the wall, right into Azir. Divine used, only knocked back the Scion. But in the end, all members of Sovereign gets chunked, gets deleted by the Caitlyn. And with the Abyssal Voyage, Ascension goes back to the base of Sovereign with only the Gangplank remaining, not even in the base. This could be game set for Ascension.
Looks like Ascension, they're gonna finish what they started right then and there. Sovereign, they tried to hold their ground within these past few minutes. That is gonna be the ace right there in terms of managing to hunt down that Gangplank, and that will be game for Thailand, ending this day one on a high note with another victory against Sovereign of Singapore. Well played.
GG, well played by both teams, especially Ascension for winning this second game, ending the day one of the group stages on a very high note, 2-0 for their standings here. But as for Sovereign, it's not yet the end of the day for them. They still have one more game in store to try and win a point. But still, I gotta say, what a guard, what a stand established by Sovereign to try and do everything they can to buy them time. They did buy them some time, but in the end, the Caitlyn at the last clash was more than enough for them to be wiped out.
Yeah, as soon as they hit that late game, they started to hold their ground. I think the tricky part right there is Ascension Gaming played it well to the extent that they took down as many resources as they can just to make sure that Sovereign, sure, they could have held their ground, but it would have been much more easier for them to have done just that if they were able to salvage a few more of their objectives earlier on. So I think it would have been a different story maybe if like turrets weren't so pushed in, but at least that just goes to show that Singaporean squad, they definitely have some fight in them. It's just a little bit more of the fine-tuning of how they hold their ground in the earlier to mid-game, transitioning into the late game once they do reach their optimal spikes. Very well played though. The Thai squad though, I mean, this pretty much repping their home base right there.
As for the standings, if you can have a short recap, looks like for Ascension, they will end this day one with a 2-0. But as for the other teams, it's not yet quite over. So, as I said before, this is our first day, the opening day of our Garena Premier League Spring Season 2018. And what a game it was. So, congratulations to Ascension for winning that second point. But as for us, we'll be going on to a short break here. My name is Vulcan. With me was Arctic, your shoutcasters for this Game 3. But as we come back, we'll be moving on to Game 4 after the short break.
Days are cold and the cards all fold, and the saints we see are all made of gold. When your dreams all fail and the ones we hail are the worst of all, and the bloods run stale. I wanna hide the truth, I wanna shelter you, but with the beast inside, there's nowhere we can hide. No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come, this is my kingdom come. When you feel my heat, look into my eyes, it's where my demons hide, it's where my demons hide. Don't get too close, it's dark inside, it's where my demons hide, it's where my demons hide. Curtains call, it's the last of all. When the lights fade out, all the sinners crawl. So they dug your grave and the masquerade will come calling out at the mess you've made. Don't